Hi, in this video we'll distinguish between series or parallel circuits. It's very important to know if the circuit is series or parallel because it's got different features, it's got a different approach to solve the problems. So we look for the first diagram, this one I mean, in the red, and you will see the source got 1 point here blue, which is the positive terminal, and this is the negative terminal, the down one. You see it's small red, and this is big red line. So here is positive and here is negative. So this source is shared with this resistance with 1 point. You will see this first terminal, and this is the first terminal of R1, sorry. It's shared in 1 point, but the second terminal for E, it doesn't share with R1. So probably it's a series. Also we will see it's one circuit diagram, and if you make a line here, you'll see it's one circuit. So this R1, the second point of the R1, or second terminal for R1, share with the R2, and the first point for the R2. The second point for R2 is shared with R3, and you will see it's the same for R3 and for R4, so it's series. What about this one? It's one circuit, like we mentioned before. The source is shared with R1 with 1 point. The other point of R1 is shared with the other resistance, which is R2, this between these 2 points. And the second point for R2 is shared with the R3 in the first point, and it's the same. So those twos are series. What about this one? So obviously the source here, this is the battery source, shared with R1 2 points. This is the first point, and this is the second point. It's the same for this one. For the source, it's shared with R1 with 2 points, 1, 2. And if you look to this line, it's common between R1, R2, and the source. And also we can go here, and it's same for R3. So this terminal shared with R3, R2, R1, and the source. This terminal is shared with R3 in the other points, R2 in the other points, R1 in the other points, and E in the other points. So this one is common between 1, 2, 3, 4 from the upper side, and this terminal is shared with R1, R2, R1, R3, and the source in second terminals. And you can see it's like there is circuits here, there is another circuits, there is another circuits. So obviously this one is parallel circuits, and it's the same for this one, but we will look to the third resistors here and third resistors here. This is one terminal, so we can look to here. So this point is shared with R3, R2, R1, and the source. I just change it little to make it a little harder and a little different. And this point, or this line, is shared with E, R1, R2, and R3. You see, this is the line that's shared. So if we delete this part and make it one, make those points one is the same. That's why I change it little to look a bit harder. Well, actually it's not that hard, but I'm assuming like you are the very basic engineer student, electrical engineering student. So what's the conclusion? For series circuits always has the same, or series circuit has the same current. See, the current is going from here and going through R1, R2, R3, R4. while the voltage depends on the R. If the R is different, like R1 is different, R2 is different, R3 is different, R4 is different, then you will find VR1, VR2, VR3, VR4 is different. If they are the same, like let's assuming like R1, R2, R3, R4, all of them have the same resistance, then VR1, VR2, VR3, VR4 will be the same. For the parallel circuits, it's always the voltage is the same. So what do we mean by that? So voltage here for the resources shared with R1, shared with R2, shared with R3. So if E equal 20 voltage, let's say, VR1 equal 20, VR2 equal 20, VR3 equal 20. But for the current, it's dependent on the R. If R is different, then I here, I1, which is from this point to this point, and I2 between this point to this point, and I3, which is between this point and this point, will be different. If they are the same, I mean like R1, R2, R3 the same, and because we are using ohm voltage, so VR1 equal VR2 equal VR3, so I here between those two points will equal VR1 divided by let's say 20 divided by 20 by 4 ohm. Let's assuming R2 equal 4 ohm, but VR1 equal 20, so it will equal 5 ampere. And this is the same if the VR2 is 20 because it's parallel to this point, and R2 is equal to 4, so 20 divided by 4 will equal I5. I equal 5 ampere, and it's the same for I3. So those two is very important. Always the teacher in this kind of question will ask you if they are asking about this series circuits, usually they ask you about the voltage, but you have to use the same currents, the features of same currents for the series. And it's the same for parallel, but it's different. It's a little different. So parallel, usually they ask you about the current, but actually you are using voltage to discover the current, and then you compare it with the R, so you will know exactly what's the current in each one, like I1, I2, I3. Thank you for today. Best wishes.